Fire like this only means one thing. You're in my kitchen now. Welcome to Season 1.
Welcome to the Animator's Couch.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are taking a really ambitious journey across the creative landscape.
We really are.
We have sources that are so specific they almost feel like internal project memos. We're going to be ping-ponging from, visual design for a graphic novel straight into the core identity of a major chef.
And that's exactly why this deep dive is so necessary. Our mission isn't just to summarize things. It's about pulling out those definitive constraints. The 2 or 3 facts that, once you know them, they just elevate your understanding from, like, a beginner to a real insider.
We're looking for the rules, the mandates.
The aesthetic mandates, the core biographical details, the stuff that dictates everything that follows.
So we have 2 really distinct areas to cover. First, a high-level design doc for a graphic novel. Then we jump over to launch documents for a big broadcast interview.
And the details in these, they are the foundation. They're the non-negotiables.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's jump right into the blueprint for that graphic novel concept. The notes, they lay out the vision with just striking clarity.
So the first thing is the product format itself. This was explicitly intended to be a graphic novel book.
A book, not a comic series.
Exactly. And that commitment, it immediately sets a precedent for long-form storytelling. You're not dealing with, say, the pacing of a webcomic or short bursts.
Right. It needs a real arc, chapter breaks, a whole unified language that you can hold in your hands.
A substantial physical object, that's the goal.
And the visual language they chose, this is where it gets really interesting. It is so specific.
It is.
They didn't just say animated style or, manga influenced. The directive in the source material is the Boondocks anime style.
And that choice, that's a massive shortcut for anyone trying to understand this project. By naming the Boondocks, the creators are using this highly potent artistic shorthand.
It sets an expectation that goes way beyond just like clean lines or coloring.
Way beyond.
Because the Boondocks style is a fusion, right? It takes the technical rigor of that early 2000s action animation, what you see in a lot of shonen anime, and smashes it together with a very American, very distinct kind of social commentary.
Precisely. If you break down the technical side, you see the path. Shonen influence means your action has to be hyperdynamic.
Speed lines, exaggerated movement.
Complex camera angles for fights, for chase scenes. It demands clean, almost clinical line work to even handle that kind of action.
And then there's that aesthetic layer on top. The characters, the settings, they're all rooted in contemporary, often urban African-American culture.
Which mandates a specific color theory. It's vivid but grounded. It reflects real environments, not some fantasy world. And it demands that high-stakes satire.
Right. When you commit to that style, you were inherently committing to a foundation of sharp, socio-political satire, that biting humor, and, a real willingness to tackle tough issues.
It tells you the graphic novel's content will likely be observational, maybe even controversial, and all filtered through that blend of dynamic visual energy and wit.
But isn't there a risk there? Specifying a style that's so recognizable, couldn't it just look like a copy?
That is a critical question, and the source notes, they emphasize the style as a guide, not a carbon copy. The innovation comes from applying that visual grammar to a new story.
So the Boondocks style is the entry point. It signals the tone, the quality.
Yes. For a designer, the challenge isn't creating a whole new language from scratch. It's about mastering the emotional range within that existing framework. It's about leveraging the audience's expectations for new thematic ends.
So it's not just a visual note. It's a genre note, an implied pacing note, a thematic note, all in one 3-word phrase.
It's the project's entire DNA. It creates instant brand recognition. And knowing that single fact gives you more insight than reading 10 pages of marketing fluff.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. But now we have to do a major pivot. Our sources send us flying from the world of panel layouts right into the highly produced world of media and culinary arts.
A fascinating shift, yeah. We're moving from the ink on the page to the profile of an accomplished chef, all packaged for broadcast.
So this second set of sources, it's all about the launch of a TV segment featuring this chef. And the interview is designed for a program called The Animator's Couch.
And right there, that's the first thing that jumps out, the contrast.
Yeah.
The title, The Animator's Couch, suggests a focus on, visual artists, character design, filmmaking, but the centerpiece of this segment is a chef.
That featured guest is the subject of this culinary deep dive, Huntley Lawrence. And the launch notes, they provide a very clear, focused profile that the audience needs to be prepped with.
Yes, the production notes line out three critical, sort of interlocking pieces of information that define him. First, he's a trained chef.
Okay, so formal education, rigorous technique.
Exactly. He's not just a media personality. He has that foundational skill set.
Second.
His geographic base, he's from the UK.
Yeah.
And third, crucially, his cultural heritage is Jamaican.
Trained chef, UK base, Jamaican heritage.
And knowing those three things together is absolutely vital context. His culinary output is inherently a synthesis. He's balancing the traditional, vibrant flavors of Jamaican cuisine with the meticulous, often experimental training of the UK food scene.
So that's the diaspora experience shaping high-level cooking.
That's the definition of it.
Can we spend a moment on that? For someone listening, why is that synthesis, that specific blend, so important for a UK-based chef?
Because it's not just about cooking Caribbean food, it's about evolution. It means his food speaks to both authenticity and innovation. He's navigating the really high-stakes standards of the UK's dining scene,
Right.
while channeling these deep, culturally rich flavors. It gives him a unique voice that cuts across different culinary spaces. You can surprise and educate his audience at the same time.
That makes perfect sense for a chef profile. But we still have that elephant in the room.
The animator's couch.
Why is this highly trained UK Jamaican chef being featured on a show called The Animator's Couch? The sources suggest the producers knew they had to bridge that gap.
And this raises the essential so what question. If they positioned him this way, it suggests his story or his methods resonate with the challenges faced by animators.
So maybe his process is the key. How he does what he does.
The most logical hypothesis is that his culinary art is highly visual, maybe theatrical, or that his journey, the discipline, the mentorship, the long hours mirrors the creative struggles that are usually discussed on that show.
So his food might be highly stylized, or he sees plating a dish almost like an animator crafts a scene.
Exactly. The fact that he's hosted here implies a cross-pollination of creative discipline. They aren't just interviewing him about ingredients, they're interviewing them about the commitment required to master a craft, period.
His whole professional profile becomes a metaphor for creative excellence.
It does. And if we connect this to modern media, it signals a trend. Creative success, even in a field like cooking, is increasingly measured by its narrative arc and its visual presentation.
Something the audience of The Animator's Couch would just inherently get.
They'd appreciate it immediately.
So we've navigated from the hyper-specific demands of the Boondocks anime style to the equally specific identity of Huntley Lawrence. Let's recap the core facts we've built out.
Okay. We've established the defining creative constraints of two very different projects. For the visual one, you now know the execution must align with the Boondocks anime style, and it has to be a graphic novel book.
That dictates aesthetics, tone, pacing, everything.
Everything.
And for the media profile, Huntley Lawrence's identity is built on three key facts. He's a trained chef from the UK with Jamaican cultural heritage. And crucially, this profile was set up for him on The Animator's Couch.
And this is more than just trivia, it's essential insight. Knowing the graphic novel style saves you months of conceptual work. Knowing the chef's specific cultural and professional blend immediately places his career in the context of, modern diaspora gastronomy.
And that efficiency, getting that knowledge quickly, is the whole point of this. These details let you jump straight to nuanced analysis.
Exactly. If you're discussing Huntley Lawrence, you already get that his story is one of blending tradition with innovation, all presented on a platform that values visual storytelling.
Absolutely. We covered extraordinary ground today. We linked the satirical ink of a graphic novel to the globally influenced plate of a professional chef.
And as we close out, I want to leave you with a final thought, one that builds on this intersection.
Yeah.
Given that this deep dive on Chef Huntley Lawrence, a professional focused on taste and presentation, was launched on The Animator's Couch, what does that suggest about the future of creative professions? Does high-level culinary expertise now require fluency in visual storytelling and media aesthetics, much like the dynamic style of the Boondocks? Is every major creative field now required to master visual narrative to really succeed?
A fascinating convergence to consider. How often is the kitchen table now the animator's storyboard? Until next time.
Keep connecting those deep details.